Hello and welcome. My name is Jessica Gem. I was at work today, at the time of writing this first paragraph, thinking about my next video and wondering what I should do for it. I currently have another video in the works, but it's one that takes many individual days and can't be crammed, but it's not quite ready yet. So I recalled some of the art that I have saved in the dusty corners of my silly little brain library as future to-dos, and tried to think of what may make a good video to post in... checks non-existent watch. Less than 4 days! 4 whole days? Why, that's eons considering your normal time frame, you may be saying. And that is fair, however, I am the worst, and the idea my ding-dang art moths latched onto was the idea of a full animatic to a song that I would have to make a cover for. So here we are again, taking on a project that's way too ambitious for the time I have available because I wanted to make something cool. To be fair, I have the next 2 days off so I can work on it all days, but still, oof. All that nonsense aside, forget you heard all that, woo! Let me tell you what I'm doing. The song that I'm using today is Beth Crowley, I Didn't Ask for This, Lonely version. I only discovered that there was a lonely version when I looked for the song on your YouTube page because I couldn't remember the name and found it first. I'm going to be using this song with my character Leah from Celestia, a Dungeons & Dragons campaign I played in. If you've seen my other videos, you may remember her, but if you haven't, no worries, I'll tell you anything relevant about her later. For now, I should actually explain what you've been seeing this whole time. The first things I had to do were 1. Start the script, wow meta, I'm doing that right now, and 2. Get the music so that I had my timing. For the music, I went through and downloaded the videos through a site online, then found some vocal removers and got some decent results. Then I remembered to do my due diligence and see if there was an official version instead. Found it. It took a bit longer to find the lonely version, but the instrumental was right there on our YouTube, so I got that instead. Would have saved time doing it right the first time. Whoops. Anywho, now that I had those first steps down, it was time to get working. Obviously, if I'm trying to get a whole animatic done, I'm gonna need the bones first, which means thumbnailing all the key sequences. I decided to do that on my iPad for ease, but the rest would be done mostly on my computer since it has more of the tools I'll need. All the prep and storyboarding took about 2.5 hours, so I think we made some good progress. I put the song and the sketches into Krita and set the bass timing off recording just to get an idea if what I had would work. Since it seemed like a solid start, that's where I stopped at 3.5 hours on the first half day. After this point, I of course did what I should have done at the beginning. I looked up how to actually make an animatic, so that was really helpful. I still don't think my initial plopping it into Krita was a mistake because it was good to see that it was starting out well, but since it's an animatic, not an animation, I'll actually be doing most of the movement in the editing stage instead. I still may animate a couple things, but overall I want to keep it simple. Laughs in future pain as I record this. Especially since one of the tutorials reminded the viewer that animatics take a lot of time, and I was thinking, oh, they're gonna say like a week or 2. She said even if it takes a month, don't get too discouraged. Looks at clock again. So, for the first day, I did a large amount of work on it, starting at about noon and going until 8 AM the next morning. I made some good progress on it, and after a 4-hour nap, got up again and kept going. Overall, in my days off, I got all the way through until I had only 2 sequences left. Now, by the amount of time I have in the title, I didn't include any time I wasn't working on it. Duh. So I just had a stopwatch going, which I paused whenever I took a meal break or anything like that. So it may be to the letter, or I guess number, of the challenge, but probably doesn't really count towards the spirit of it if I had set a time including that stuff. Oh well, I'm doing all of this for fun anyways. After work on the 3rd full day, the day before it's due, I finished up the last 2 scenes, colored and added a few details, and exported all the different PNGs for my sequences. At this point, I had only done all my laid out keyframes without any extra animation or detail, so I'm hoping that I'll have time to add a little extra oomph later. All the art and exports were finished at hour 33, so I, theoretically, have 3 left to make the edit. I'm not going to include recording the vocals in the time limit, since most animatics just use pre-existing audios. Oh yeah, if you didn't catch that earlier, I'm doing a cover song for this bad boy. Prepare to hear my voice. Wait. Before I wrap up, I just wanted to explain a tiny bit of context for a couple of the decisions I made for those who are interested. For this scene, I chose to have Rail with Vulpes in front for the line spiteful, because Vulpes was afraid of Rail being angry or vengeful against them multiple times throughout the campaign, often due to something bad that had happened involving or caused by them. For the second part of that line, ruinous, I chose to use Nathan. Not because I think he actually believed she would be, but rather because she ended up assisting in his ruin at Vecna's hands. The line immediately following those is about the villains they've faced, and for these I chose to include Zothix, an enemy to Nathan and his church, Jar Lee, previously a friend of Nathan who went rogue and ended up betraying him and hurting a lot of people, Vecna, Nathan's most intense challenge and ultimate downfall. On the other side we have Alice, a troublesome figure to all involved, but especially her ex-student Vulpes, whom she steered very wrong. Beside her, Torthak, a gold dwarf met early in the group's arrival who took advantage of the loneliness and lack of judgment of Vulpes to cause a vampire outbreak that destroyed thousands. And finally Strahd, though not directly involved with Vulpes, his influence still touched them, and to represent that and their vampirehood, he has been added. For this image, we have the stones of power that Vecna sought in his journey to ascension, and here we have the representation of Leah's transformation from a simulacrum into a living being through a legendary scroll that was in Nathan's simulacrum's possession when Vecna got a hold of him and the others. The images here represent some of the darkest moments from Leah's life. The first is the moment Linnell was stolen from her arms, paralyzed by Malconthet and helpless to stop her. The second is the return of Vecna's spellbook, which renewed his power and gave him access to the necessary magics for completing his goal. Third, we have the moment Leah unknowingly consumed the soul of Archie in order to gain lichdom to assist in her quest. And last but not least, the execution of Vulpes before they could undergo the lich ritual to prevent the further harm they would do. The reason for the different colors here is to show the soul origins now contained within Leah. The largest is Archie from the ritual, the second blue is from Vulpes, who is also taken in, and the green is from the soul of Shadow, who was drunk by Vulpes before they were prevented from undergoing the transformation. This sequence tells of Leah's ability to steal your soul. Rest in peace, thanks for the food though. And the leaving of her family, as well as some of the pain yet to befall them, thankfully not to her knowledge. I'll be putting all this art together, as well as the cover song, to be released this week on May 26th at 4 PM EST, so please make sure to check it out. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was an interesting process to see. That's all for now, so farewell and have a wonderful day.